Good morning. Today in CS 1400 we're going to talk about how we can work with constructors and how we can use them to specify information in Java. We've got a couple bits of information we want to make sure we talk about. We've got 3 different types of constructors we're going to be working with and that we'll be using as we go through and write our software throughout the year. Our first constructor we have is the one that's supplied by the JVM if we don't write one ourselves. It's the implicit or the default constructor. This is one that is created automatically if we write a class inside Java and we don't actually formally write our own constructor. So it's a default or implicit constructor. It has no parameters, and it's a bad one. It's not one we want to use. The reason the implicit or default constructor is bad is because it automatically uses the default values for all objects, which is null for any object, and then 0 for all our primitives, which is generally not what we want. This is not something we want to do, so we want to make sure we don't ever use the implicit or default constructor when we're actually writing code that we're going to be using for actual stuff inside Java. So this is when we want to avoid using it at all costs. Then we have our 0 parameter constructor. This is the okay level constructor or the good constructor. It's not the great one, but it's good. This is when we're good when we are designing basic initialization. I use this all the time in our controller class because we're starting off the controller from no external information. It simply starts up and loads from the beginning. If you don't need to supply information, then the 0 parameter constructor is a great idea because, hey, it doesn't need anything extra to start. It has everything it needs right inside the constructor. And so that's where you're designing for basic initialization. You set things up with the values that you want to have to start off with that. And so for our constructor class, for our controller class, the 0 parameter constructor is the one we will always use for that because it starts from the runner. It has no supplied information because it simply starts up and runs at that point. And so we don't have anything to give it to it, so that always starts with a 0 parameter constructor because there's no external information. And this is one for designed basic initialization. The better constructor is the parameterized constructor. This is a constructor that we send information to so we can specifically assign values to the data members that belong inside our object. The parameterized constructor allows us to specify, oh, this parameter goes to this data member. This parameter and this parameter combine to make this data member. And so we use the parameterized constructor so we can properly initialize the correct values of our data member. Properly initialize the data members of our constructor just like a constructor should do to initialize that object. This is the best one. So we assign the initial values from those external sources like, say, for example, user input, calculated values, or other information. We send that information as a parameter to the constructor so we can then use it to create the objects that are customized and better for us. So that's what we want to do. So we have 3 constructors. We have the bad version, the implicit or default constructor, supplied by the JVM, the okay or good constructor, the 0 parameter constructor that's great for basic default initialization, and then we have the best constructor, that's the parameterized constructor, and that's one where we can specify information, use it to assign the data members, and initialize objects as we customize them and need them as we go along. Hope this is helpful. Cheers and have a great day. See you next time. Bye-bye.